that's just fantastic. Good God. Oh, hey, perfect timing. So, remember last time how I mentioned I had a game in mind to talk about next time, and obviously that game would have been Sonic the Hedgehog? Wrong game. Sonic the Hedgehog. Well, my Sega Genesis decided to, let's just say, crap itself.
Yep, my Genesis decided it was the perfect time to start outputting an annoying buzzing noise and show this weird screen tearing, which I think are obvious signs of a blown capacitor that is in need of replacement. Due to this, I had to pick one of three options. The first option is to just play on my Sega Nomad, which is a portable Genesis Model 2, which sounds like a no-brainer. Problem, the only way I could power the thing is with a Model 2 power brick, as I lack the Nomad's battery pack. And a problem with my Nomad is that the plug-in for the power is very finicky, to the point that if I move it in a weird way, it'll shut off and force me to reset. So sadly, that was a no-go. Option B is to just play Sonic through a modern re-release or through an emulator. Problem, I'm a stubborn bitch. I like to try to play games the way they originally came out, aka playing the game on their original console. Of course, there are times where I would make slight exceptions, like how I used Crispy Doom so I didn't have to play Doom in a 35 FPS pixelated mess, but still, I try to play older games like how many people did back then, just so I can get a bit more of a accurate experience. So that means I, technically, had no choice but to go with option C, which is to put Sonic aside for the time being and pick out a different game to play. But that brings me back to the question.
But what should I play? I mean, there's always Doom 2, but nah, it's still a bit too early for that. How about we stick to something that's on consoles? Like, how about the NES? There's Mario. How am I kidding? Everyone knows how Mario is. How about Zelda? Now, that'll probably take me like hours to complete without like a guide. Okay, how about Castle Lair? What in the hell's Castle Lair? Oh God, what the hell is that thing? No! God, that thing was grody. Ugh. Wait. Yeah. How about some
CastleVania, a Golden Age horror-filled 8-bit classic, made by Konami, released back in September 26 of 1986 for the Famicom Disk System in Japan. Originally named Akumajo Dracula, or Akumajo Dracula if you're not doing a possibly racist Japanese accent. It was later released to the Nintendo Entertainment System on April 30th of 1987 in North America, and sometime in November of 1988 in Europe, renamed to the one that we all know and love to this very day. There was also an MSX2 version, released on October 30th of 1986 in Japan, and sometime later in 1987 in Europe, though they renamed it to Vampire Killer for some reason. And there was also an arcade remake of Castlevania, also in 87, that they called Haunted Castle? What the hell? You know what? It doesn't matter.
We're just gonna be playing the Famicom NES version of the game. This is the game that everyone has played, and the game that everyone will remember. And if you've played Castlevania, you would know that this game is as hard as getting a single stick of RAM nowadays. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. This game's way easier than that.
Remember back when we were discussing Doom and I mentioned shareware-itis, where basically any game that had shareware would put most of the good levels in the shareware, where then the levels in the full release would usually vary in quality? Well, Castlevania has something I like to call NES syndrome, where essentially any game back then would have a high chance of being harder than hardtack. And of course, this was very common on the NES, hence the name. And Castlevania is no exception. However, unlike some games where I find it hard to the point of being pure bullshit, Castlevania is hard but also very rewarding. But that's more of something to talk about when we get to the end. For now, let's start with talking about the game's development. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I can't really find much on the game's development, always ending up at dead ends, with the only info I can find being on its Wikipedia page and on a Castlevania fandom page. And just to go on a little side tangent, if you're gonna be making a wiki page for a series, topic, or fandom you like or are a part of, don't use fandom. For the love of God, just never use it. And if you're having problems finding a wiki page not made with fandom, because fandom keeps getting shoved to the top of your search engine, download the Indie Wiki Buddy extension. Just do it. Fandom is literally like one of the most parasitic things I've ever seen in my entire goddamn life. What was I talking about again? Oh, right, development history. So, I didn't find much, and honestly, it makes sense. There aren't any development builds or early screenshots of it out there, and compared to any other game's development, there probably wouldn't be as much information of it out there either, let alone anything interesting or worth mentioning. So, let's just go over some basic information that I did find, mainly from its Wikipedia page, and some facts that did caught my eye on the shitstain. CastleVania was directed by Hitoshi Akumatsu, a person who you can say is quite the fan of cinema. And due to that, he always approached projects that he works on with a film director's eye, with him and his team approaching the music and visuals of the game in a cinematic way. And since Hitoshi wanted to go with a classic horror film vibe, they naturally made the game dark, moody, and possibly atmospheric. I don't know, it's an 8-bit game, so who can really tell? But either way, they made the game with the intent of having players feel like they're playing through a horror movie, like playing the lead role in a Hammer film. Which, speaking of, originally, the main character of the game was named Peter Dante, a reference to both Peter Cushing, an actor that starred in many Hammer films, including Hammer's Dracula and Frankenstein, and Joe Dante, a film director of such films as Piranha, The Howling, and of course, Gremlins. Although, this name goes unused. Instead, the name given to our hero is Simon Belmont. Now, the tidbits on the fandom page. First, it mentions that Hideo Kojima, during the 2010 Tokyo Game Show, noted that when he was working on Metal Gear for the MSX, he was department neighbors with the CastleVania devs, describing the game as a groundbreaking title with solid worldviews for the time. Second, the game's box art seems to be based off or inspired by the artwork Norseman by Frank Frazetta back in 1972. Or at least when it comes down to the pose of the character in front. It kind of reminds me how the Duke Nukem 3D box art was based off the movie poster for Army of Darkness. Third, the NES instructions for Castlevania mentions a 2-player mode, despite the fact that Castlevania doesn't have a 2-player mode, not even as something that's unused in the game's code. This appears to be a copy and paste from the Gradius instructions, as both of them use the same instruction template. And lastly, when the Famicom version was brought over to the US, its release corresponded with the 90th anniversary of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And that's all the info I got. It ain't much, and could possibly be wrong, but hey, info's info, I guess.
And with that, let's talk about the main story of the game. Now, something to note is that Castlevania 1 is not the first game in the series, chronologically. I believe the first game in the series might be Lament of Innocence, and then there's like a bunch of games after that before you get to Castlevania 1. And I'm just gonna say it, we're not gonna be playing the Castlevania games chronologically. So let's just talk about the main gist of this game. That being that you play as
Simon Belmont, a member of the Belmont clan. And your clan has had some centuries-long beef with Dracula, and no matter how many times he gets killed, he always comes back. So as the 5th Belmont up, it's now your turn to go up, fight through his castle, kick his ass, and put him to rest once again.
Well, with that being said, let's play some Castlevania. But I do want to be honest and clarify one thing. I'm going to be playing with an EverDrive with save states, but don't worry. I'm only going to use a save state after I get a game over and a new level, just as a way for me to save progress. But I am also going to use a save state at a very specific point in the game, but you'll see why when it gets to that point. But either way, this is the same game. There's no ROM hacks involved to give me an easier experience or any cheat devices like a Game Genie to allow me to cheat through. It's the same game, same ROM, and the same ass kicking that everyone else got back then. Well, kind of. But let's just shut up and get into the game, shall we?
Welcome to Dracula's castle. Remember to wipe your feet. A few things to know before going inside. Your whip sucks ass, so make sure to whip these torches to get a chain whip. Or flail. Whatever. It upgrades your whip to do more damage, and grabbing a second one makes it longer. While whipping these torches, you may also pick up parts, and despite what you're likely thinking, this is not health. This is ammo for your inventory items, with small hearts giving you 1 point of ammo and big ones giving you 5. And with them, you can use such items like the dagger, a simple projectile weapon. To use an inventory item, all you have to do is attack while holding up on the D-pad. As you enter the castle, you'll see it isn't so forlorn, as it's bustling with zombies that'll charge right at you. Which, I'm gonna be honest, they look less like zombies and more like grandmas I saved from the Crap, what's that one place called where people retire to? Oh, right, funeral homes. The zombies mostly stick to the bottom floor, so you can easily avoid them by going up the stairs to a higher level, if you like. And to do so, all you have to do is stand near the steps and simply hold up, or down if you want to descend. But do be careful, as black leopards will be waiting up top, ready to pounce on you. If you do head up, you can hit this candle to get some holy water. Okay, that or a Molotov. You can also get items from killing enemies, like the stopwatch, which can freeze all enemies in the stage for a few seconds, and is the only item in the game that uses 5 hearts instead of 1. Head upstairs and hit this candle to find a cross, a power-up that'll wipe out every enemy on screen, which is kind of pointless here. Continue on to the second section of the level, or stage 2 as the game calls it, and avoid this bat, an enemy that flies forward while slowly going up and down. If you lost any health earlier, make sure to break this wall to get some whatever type of meat that is. Ah, wall meat. It may be cold, have bits of debris in it, and is possibly also rotting, but for the Belmonts, this is a feast. Wall meat is the one item that can only be found within walls, making it quite vital to memorize where they are, let alone it being pretty hard to find. But that just makes it all the more rewarding to find where it is.
I find it kind of funny I decided to go with meat instead of something like a health potion. It kind of makes it feel like the Belmonts have some weird form of hammer space. Kind of like in my jacket acts like a really crappy inventory, which, you know, I'm starting to think my jacket came from a crime scene.
Head downstairs and say hello to the Fishmen, a type of enemy that jumps out of the water and starts chasing you. They're not really much of a threat, for now at least. Head back up and enter Section 3, Stage 1's home stretch. If you hit this candle, you can get the Potion of Invisibility, which makes you invincible for 5 seconds. It's practically pointless. Check this candle to find the axe, a projectile that gets thrown upwards in an arc, which can be pretty handy for the Stage 1 boss, a giant bat. The boss is pretty simple, it just flies around and swoops down at times. Just throw axes at its face and you'll get that crystal ball in no time. Stage 1 is, well, Stage 1. It's simple, but has a lot of things to go over, and it does well at showing the player what they're getting into, by throwing out the simplest enemies, giving most of the inventory items for the player to test out, and keeping things mostly interesting with the level design. It's simple level 1 stuff at its finest, but god, there is no way in hell I can just carry on to the next level without talking about the music. The NES is well known for having some really great tunes, and CastleVania is no exception, with the music being composed by Kinuyo Yamashita and Satoe Terashima, with the track you're hearing now being Vampire Killer. Oh, that's where the MSX2 title comes from. Overall, it's a level 1. It's simple, easy, and nothing really wrong with it, just like how any level 1 should be. Level 2, where the annoyance for the inexperienced begins. And would you look at that? The last inventory item. This is the cross, or more accurately, the boomerang. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. Throwing it makes it go forward a bit before coming back, only stopping if it hits the player or goes off screen. You're also introduced to the Black Knight, an enemy that marches back and forth, but usually tries to follow the player. It's also the first standard enemy that needs to be whipped twice with a chain whip to be taken down. Unlike level 1, level 2 is very comfortable with giant pits, which is where you'll learn that the game's physics is weird. And what I mean by that is, if you jump, there's no way to turn around or to stop in midair, meaning that you're forced to commit to every jump. And if you mess up, you're gonna plummet to the ground extremely fast. And if you get hit, you'll fly backwards, and the same thing will apply. And you're gonna learn this really fast once you meet these little shits. These are Medusa heads, and simply put, they're like the bats but faster, and their vertical movement is way more exaggerated. Something to note is that they also spawn depending on where you're looking. Now luckily, the devs were nice enough to make you meet them in this long stretch of a room, just to get an idea on how they work. And then they immediately throw you into oncoming fire. This room will be a pain in the ass for those who aren't ready, or just haven't really grasped the movement pattern of the Medusa heads. If you get past it, then you can get rewarded with flesh filled with worms and maybe asbestos. The next room has another challenge. You have to get past these spiked crushers that only appear in this one singular room. If you get crushed, you'll instantly die. Make it through and you'll be greeted by 2 new enemies. First is the Ghost, an enemy that'll simply float towards you. And then there's the Dragon Skull Cannon, a stationary obstacle that'll shoot 2 fireballs from one of its heads depending on which one is facing you, requiring you to hit it 6 times with the chain whip to take it down. In the same room, breaking this block will reveal the Double Shot, a power-up that'll allow you to throw an additional projectile, with there also being the Triple Shot, which will allow you to throw out 3 projectiles. Do note that this has no effect on the stopwatch. And with that, it's boss time. And say hello to Medusa herself, and dear God, she's easy. Now, she would usually just fly around, ram into you, and drop snakes on the floor that you have to jump over, but for some reason, her and the giant bat are the only bosses that are affected by the stopwatch, making it incredibly easy to defeat her. And because of that, level 2 is still pretty easy, just with a small hint of challenge. Frankly, the only difficult part is that bottomless pit with the Medusa heads, but even then, you can easily learn how to avoid their ambushes. The Crusher part could also be a contender, but you either have to be really bad at timing or to be unlucky with the hitboxes for it to be a problem. The track that plays in the level is called Stalker, and I think it fits perfectly with level 2. It gives the feeling that things are now really getting started, kind of like with I Saw the Demons in Doom 1. Just instead of it being a track that plays when you wake up in hell and start immediately gunning through demons, Stalker gives the vibes of infiltrating a place, getting through the fields and jumping over the fences. Like how you just got through the main hall and are now sending upwards, getting closer to the main goal, one step at a time. Level 2 is like level 1. It's easy to help players get accustomed to the controls, but just with a little bit of spice to keep things from getting bland. Level 3. Welcome to the garden. Hope you got rid of those training wheels, because if you haven't, level 3 is going to take them and shove them up your ass. Don't you hate it when you go outside to get some fresh air and you immediately get attacked by some homunculus baby? Well, for the Belmonts, that's exactly what it's like when they encounter a hunchback, or flea man. An enemy that takes 1 hit to kill but are fast little bastards, jumping around left and right, taking little scratches at you. For first-time players, these freaks are a pain. But luckily, I know a way how to deal with them. See, the hunchbacks move around by doing small hops, and if you get close enough but not too close, they'll make a large jump, usually landing behind you. So simply, as they're going to land, just whip them. However, if there's a bunch of them, you'll have to act quick or figure something else out. The start of the level really shows how old and ancient this castle is, with vines everywhere, broken statues, broken everything, honestly. Like, Jesus Christ, Drac, can you at least get some carpenters over to fix the damn place? Like, seriously, there's floating platforms with no way to get to them, pits everywhere. Hell, there's not even a roof unless this is meant to be a garden. Like, Jesus Christ, you even got skeletons lying around! Nah, wait, never mind, that's just minions. Skeletons. These boneheads will shimmy around, jump to different platforms, and throw bones at you, in the same vein that you throw axes. But just like most skeletons, it's not really that hard to kill them, because, come on, there's nothing holding those bones in place. Heading upstairs to section 2, you'll find some ravens. And just like any bird, they have murderous intent. They'll swoop down to your level and then fly into you. If they miss, they'll boomerang back around, unless they somehow get off screen. If they miss again, they'll be nevermore. Get it? Because, quote the raven. At least fake laugh! Due to these ravens and skeletons, this section is like the one in level 2, but this time it takes up an entire room. The next section is also very similar to a room in level 2, but now with more cartilage. The next section is much the same as section 2, just a whole lot more forgiving for some reason. This Dragon Skull Cannon can be dangerous if you're not being careful, because one bad move can lead to a fireball in your gut and a U in the ground. The last section before the boss is pretty dangerous, again being a straight path being monitored by ravens and cannons, with the path further on having missing blocks and skeletons jumping about. And at the very end, it pulls a middle finger by throwing some Medusas at you. And since I was busy with the dragon cannons, one touched me, and I gained my first death.
Yeah, pretty overwhelming, huh? No, I'm not gonna count my deaths, that would be embarrassing.
Boss time! Say hello to the mummies. And I do mean it plural. These toilet paper twins both share the same health bar, and I don't mean that each of them gets half. No, they both share the same health. So if one falls down, the other will follow suit, just like twins in real life. But them sharing the same health doesn't make this boss any less overwhelming, as both of them will throw out toilet paper, which, get this, practically acts like the Medusa heads, and they'll also most likely corner you. The devs probably knew this was a tad bit much, so in addition of giving you a platform to stand on, they also stashed some wall meat into the boss arena. Too bad the devs didn't also take into account of overlapping enemies. See, if you use your whip or throw a boomerang at two enemies whose hitboxes are overlapping, you'll deal damage to both of them every single frame. And since these two share the same health, you can use this to your advantage to kill them easier. Now, of course, I didn't know this at the time, so I defeated them the old-fashioned way. With luck. Level 3 is where things start to really heat up, with the enemy roster starting to get switched out with more dangerous foes, and the level giving way to more pits and obstacles for the player to deal with. And the track, Wicked Child, really reflects that fact, being one of the more intense tracks in the game, fitting for a level that gets more hectic the further you march forward. Level 3 is damn good, and currently, in my opinion, is the best level so far, but let's see if any others can take its throne. I can tell you now, it ain't gonna be a level 4. Level 4. This section may be full of water, but don't let it fool you. This is hell.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest real quick. This is my first time ever playing through CastleVania, fully. Whenever I play CastleVania, I always reach level 3 and then proceed to quit. Either because I got a game over, or because I got really bored. So this is my first time ever making it to level 4, and because of that, I'm gonna fucking die a lot!
Level 4 starts you off in a gauntlet, to really test your platforming skills, or just to remind you how god-awful the physics are in this game. And also coming back for their encore are the bats and fishmen, only to be obstacles in this one room. And boy, if they weren't here, this room would have been like 45% easier. You'll have to jump on floating platforms while avoiding jumping fishmen, whipping bats at the right time, because if you somehow miss, they'll headbutt you into the water, maneuvering around this rock that, yes, has collision. You know, it's not even hard, I think I'm just exaggerating way too much, but it could take you time to memorize this one section alone thanks to all the crap flying around. Plus, it doesn't really help that the bats, and mostly the fishmen, will spawn at different spots each and every single time you enter the level or die. Which, speaking of...
Before we move forward, let's quickly mention what happens when you get a game over. Because... quite a few.
When you get a game over, or just eat shit in general, you'll get full health back, but lose all of your hearts, the inventory item you had, and go back to your standard whip. Though, if it's a normal death, you'll get sent back to the last stage you made it to. With a game over, you'll be sent to the very beginning of the level, which is the exact reason why I decided to use save states specifically on the game over screen. Because I feel like if I used a save at the beginning of the level when I first enter it, it would be very, very cheap, as I would be getting game overs constantly, but not really getting the punishment of losing any of my items, which defeats the whole point of the game over. Now, the reason I've decided to talk about how getting a game over works in this game is simply due to the level after this section being really, really boring. The next section is literally just a long stretch of road, but hey, at least there's enemies. Too bad it's just the fucking hunchbacks! Specifically, hunchbacks being dropped by eagles. So it's kinda like getting shat on. If you make it past the Bukkake party, you'll meet the Bone Dragon, an enemy that takes 7 chain whips to kill, moves constantly, shoots fireballs, and only appears in this one level. The best way to deal with them is likely with the boomerang, but I didn't have one, so had to do it the hard way. Luckily, there's a good chance for it to drop 5 to 8 small hearts, which is very, very nice. However, those hearts could also instead be money bags, the most pointless item in the game, that, ironically, only gives you points. Sure, the points can give me an extra life, but does that really matter? I'm playing CastleVania, I'm gonna be dying constantly anyways. And even if I do get hearts, it doesn't really change the fact that these things are annoying to deal with. And there are 2 more behind this door! Kill them, break this block for meat, You need it.
Don't lie to me.
And enter the arena to fight Frankenstein. And Igor. Despite this being a duo, the health bar is only used by Frankie, and Igor here is less so moral support and more so here to be fucking annoying. Simply put, Igor is a hunchback on crack, jumping around like he's on the damn moon. And whatever was in that crack, it gave him fire powers and partial immortality. So if Igor can do all of this, what the hell can Frankenstein do? Well, he can shimmy to the left and right. Frankenstein doesn't really attack, he only does damage if he accidentally walks into you, which actually kind of tracks with his character, as in the films, he would only ever attack people when scared or threatened. Because, you know, he's scared. He doesn't know what's going on. He's just a poor little boy. He was just born yesterday. He was brought and thrown to this harsh world against his will. He's not the monster here. The true monster is that fucking doctor! Anyways, I think the only way to defeat this boss is with pure luck, hoping that Igor is just fucking around doing nothing as you whip poor Frankie to death. And with that, level 4, in the kindest way possible, is the least interesting level. Because it sucks ass. The only thing good in the level was the first section and the music. Speaking of, the level has 2 tracks, those being Stalker, again, and Walking on the Edge, which only plays in the first section of the level. Walking on the Edge is pretty damn good, but since it's used in this one level only, it's probably the last CastleVania track that I would think of when thinking about its OST. The level in general just feels unfinished. Like, they were able to finish the first section and the boss area, but then realized they were running out of development time, so they just made a simple path, added eagles that drop hunchbacks from a later level into this level, and when they saw it wasn't hard enough, they quickly cobbled together that dragon skeleton thing. Level 4 is just not good. It is the bottom of the barrel of levels in this game, and it's all because of one underbaked room and one, in my opinion, unnecessary enemy. Level 5. It starts off simple enough. Just some hunchbacks and some skeletons, nothing really special, until we meet this. A red one. Red skeletons are less like the skeletons and more like the Dark Knights back in level 2. But when you attack one, they don't die. They become a pile of bones, and will immediately get back up after a second or two. They're only a threat if you're not really paying attention to them. Though if you want to see a real threat, look behind this door and... oh boy. These are Axemen, and boy, these are some tanks. Take a guess on how many hits it takes to take one down. Go ahead, guess. Took a guess? Good. Now, let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9. 9 hits with the chain whip, just to take one down. And they're not called Axemen for no reason, cause they'll throw an axe straight forward, either up high or down low, and they'll boomerang right back to sender. They're quite threatening, huh? Well, my friend, this is where I learned quite the valuable lesson. Never underestimate the holy water, because it is overpowered as shit. Sure, the holy water can't be thrown for jack crap without jumping, but if the Axemen are like tanks, then the holy water is like thermite, because if you throw it at the right spot, it could kill them instantly. But it doesn't just kill them quickly, it can also quickly kill literally everything else. Hell, it can even wipe out all the bosses with these. The only reason why I never used it was because I just didn't have it. Plus, I don't think it will really work that well on Frankenstein thanks to that coked out bastard. The section upstairs is full of our new friends. You really gotta maneuver around to dodge axes, throw holy water, and avoid red skulls. Otherwise, there isn't really much to mention in this part. Same goes with the next room, other than the dragon cannon waiting for you on the other side of the door and at the top of the stairs, which you can easily kill, and the slab of meat behind this wall. The next room, however, is a bullet hell. Not only does it contain 2 Axemen, but it also spawns Medusa heads in front and behind you. And if you don't got any holy water or any ranged weapon really, this is gonna be a pain in the ass to get through, even with a fully extended whip. So take your time to deal with each Axeman one at a time while being wary of the Medusa heads. Don't fight them both at the same time, or else you're gonna have more dodge to crap. Or crap to dodge. Make it pass and prepare yourself for death!
Yeah, Death himself works for Dracula. For some reason. I can only assume that Dracula pays him well.
Due to Death being Death, he's one of the hardest bosses in the game, though he doesn't attack you directly. Instead, he just floats around and has his spinning, homing, respawning scythes do the job for him. Now, he may be Death, but sadly, he's also a CastleVania 1 boss, so of course, there's an easy way to kill him. Which just brings me back to the holy water. If you just spam them on the platform that Death floats down to, you'll stun lock him and quickly kill him before you can even spawn in his scythes, making him go from one of the most dangerous bosses in the entire game to being more pathetic than a normal skeleton. But with that was level 5. It's pretty alright. It's definitely difficult if you're going into it for the first time, but definitely easier on repeat playthroughs. Its track, Heart of Fire, is one of my top tracks in the entire game, just for this part alone. If it wasn't for the 2 new enemies, mostly the Axemen, the level could have fit more as a level 2 or 3. And if it wasn't for the holy water, boomerang, and especially that one platform that Death lowers upon, I feel like the level would have been infuriating to play through. But instead, it's kind of like in the midway point of the two. It's not bad, and probably my second favorite level in the game. Level 6! Here it is, the final stretch. Why the hell are you here? The level 1 boss is back in this one section as a normal enemy. And not only that, but also did the same jugs that Igor took, allowing it to shoot fireballs and charge into you a bit faster now. Meaning it's likely gonna knock you into one of the dozen pits in this part over and over again. But it's not alone, because it also decided to bring along its entire bloody family. There are 5 of these things in this one section. Like, Jesus Christ, I think 3 would have been enough. Okay, hold on. So if there's 5 of them and it takes like 8 chain whips to take one down, that'll be a total of like 40 hits you have to land. And you have very little wiggle room and not enough health to tank them ramming into you. Not to mention all the pits. So how the hell did the devs expect you to deal with this? You don't. As you enter, head upstairs and strike down skeletons. You'll see the gears, chains, and pulleys that operate the giant clock tower. Oh, for fuck's sake! Due to all the details and colors in the background, you could get confused on where to go, like I did. Just go downstairs here and... Alright, I'm gonna be honest, there's not really much to talk about here. The entire level is simply just one final gauntlet to run through, which is pretty evident with the enemy lineup, simply just being the big bats, skeletons, and the eagles that drop hunchbacks, which are practically just spammed all over the place. The only strategy to the level is just book it. There's no reason to fight, because if you do, you're gonna quite literally get jumped. To me, this makes the level just as weak as level 4. The music track, Out of Time, does work pretty well with the level, giving the feeling that you're almost at the main goal. But other than that, level 4 just has nothing to talk about. So, let's just move forward. As you exit the clock tower, you see before you what is possibly the last set of stairs you'll ever ascend. As you climb up high enough to feel eye level with the crescent moon, you enter the building, gather what supplies you can, and walk to the main hall, ready to take him down once again. Only to see an empty coffin. Suddenly, he appears behind you, takes shape, and is ready to make you feel his wrath. It's him, the Dark Lord himself, Dracula! And he's fucking annoying! Dracula isn't incredibly hard, he's just annoying. The only thing he does is teleport around and throw a spread of 3 fireballs at you. But he teleports around everywhere. It could be to the left side of the room, the right side, in front of you, behind you, practically inside of you. So just expect that you're going to be dying a lot in this battle. Though, luckily, if you die or even get a game over, you won't be sent to the beginning of level 6. You'll just spawn at the bottom of the staircase. Now, of course, you won't have any of your hearts or inventory items anymore, but don't fret. If you head upstairs, break candles, and immediately go back down, and then up again, all the candles will respawn. And with this, you can farm as many hearts as you want, up to 99. Due to this, I've elected to use a save state here, just so I didn't have to recollect hearts over and over again after each death. Dracula can only be damaged by attacking his head, because as we all know, the only way to put down Dracula is by giving him a brain hemorrhage. But if you don't time it right, you'll likely get hit by at least one of his fireballs. So this is what I do. I throw a boomerang, timing it as he opens his cloak, depending on the distance, to destroy all of his fireballs, where then I can jump up to whip him in the face. Repeat this a couple dozen times, and with enough patience, Dracula will finally fall and be put to rest. Once again, oh my god, yep, Dracula has a phase 2, where he'll turn into a giant, hideous beast that, ironically, is easier than the first phase. He still shoots fireballs, just a bit higher up now, and you can still only hurt him by attacking his head, but now he can no longer teleport. Instead, he acts like a hunchback, moving by hopping around and sometimes doing a big jump that he can walk under, just in case you're getting cornered. If you have a boomerang, dealing with this phase is practically nothing. With anything else, you could have some trouble, which frankly could just be said about Dracula in general. But otherwise, looking back at it, Dracula's kind of easy. Now, sure, I did enter the fight with the best way to approach him, and with save states, but still, he's kind of mid-tier, and that probably is due in part with the stage before it, as it didn't really have much of a real challenge. And taking that in consideration with the other bosses, I'd say the hardest boss would probably either be the mummies or Frankenstein and Igor. The mummies due to their level actually being challenging, and Frankenstein and Igor due to the 3 fucking bone dragons before them. Now, I'm not saying that Dracula isn't difficult, this is just my experience with him, and even then, I did die to him a dozen times. I mean, this is my first time ever fighting him, but the experience could vary between person to person. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. I've had enough of this old geezer anyway, so let's get the hell out of here. With Dracula defeated, his castle comes crumbling down under the morning sun, cementing that you have won, and your clan has vanquished the evil once again. Oh hey, credits! With such memorable names as Trans Fisher, Vran Stoker, James Banana, Christopher B., Boris Karloffus, and of course, Green Stranger. Kind of a missed opportunity to have this guy under Frankenstein. Okay, obviously these are just names of well-known people in the history of horror, just misspelled in humorous and dumb ways. But the first 3 do represent people who did work on the game, with Hitoshi Akumatsu going under both Trans Fisher and Bram Stoker, and Kinuyo Yamashita and Satoe Terashima going under James Banana. Now, the reason for the silly pseudonyms is due to game companies trying to make sure that their employees aren't being headhunted by other companies. And it's possible that the other names could be pseudonyms for other developers as well, but you'll likely never know. After the credits, the game sends you back to level 1, for you to start the second quest, where enemies come in larger numbers, are faster, and can deal 4 units of damage to your health. Now, of course, I'm not going to be doing the second quest because I just did the first, but if this is a challenge that piques your interest, then by all means, be my guest.
And thus, that was CastleVania. Is the game any good? Well, yeah, of course the game is good. It's a classic. But just because the game is a classic doesn't mean it has no faults. I mean, it is almost a 40-year-old game after all, so of course it's not going to age like wine. But I don't think it aged like milk either. I feel like it aged more like pure honey, where even after all these years, it's still as good as when it first appeared on store shelves.
I think a good way to describe CastleVania 1 is that it's almost a perfect trial and error game. Okay, well, every game can be a trial and error game, but I feel like CastleVania is close to being the right amount of challenge for people who are seeking to play harder games. I just feel like it goes a bit tad over the brim in some parts, mostly with the bosses. Sure, there are insanely easy ways to kill them, but for first timers, they're not really gonna know that right off the bat. Well, at least back then. And yes, them learning how to do it the easy way is absolutely a case of trial and error, but I think the solutions are a bit too easy and not as rewarding if you're just going to do the strategy that people do to just get the boss done and over with. Let alone the fact that I don't really think the devs really intended for these solutions. But even still, the game is very rewarding to play through. Every time you die, the more you learn to deal with parts in the level, and for every level you complete, it feels like an accomplishment. And unlike other NES games, I feel like CastleVania doesn't just throw crap at you most of the time. Or at least doesn't throw crap at you that feels impossible to get through. Most of the time. And because of that, I'd say the game still holds up to this very day. Literally the only problem I have with the game is with the bosses. And level 4, but mainly the bosses. They're either really easy or can be killed easily, or really hard to beat without an exploit or abusing game mechanics. Or is Dracula. But everything else is pretty damn solid. The gameplay's fun, the items are interesting, most levels are well designed, and the soundtrack, oh god damn, the soundtrack is bitchin'. I've already said it once, so there's no need to say it again, but damn, this music is awesome.
CastleVania is a great game, and a great option for those who are new to the NES library who are looking for a challenge. And just like that, I have nothing else to say. Dear God, I'm pretty sure that was even shorter than last time. Oh, it's an NES game, what can I do about it? I'll try to see if I can get the Genesis fixed up, but if I can't, then I guess we'll just jump into Doom 2. And if not that, then I'll just think of another topic to talk about, like... What can I talk about? Maybe physical media? That's probably not a bad idea. Thanks for coming back to hear me ramble on again. And honestly, I don't know what else to say. So, thank you for coming back, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe.